Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. We will let a few more people get signed in and we'll get started. This is a Zoom webinar, not a Zoom meeting, so your microphones and cameras are turned off. Just the presenters will have the microphone and camera on. Just wanted to make sure you knew that. And we'll get started here in just a few seconds. All right, well, thanks for joining us today. Welcome, good people. Thank you. I think we have some really good information to share. Might be even a little inspiring. You know, this world is not perfect. I don't think it's too controversial to say that. And it's easy to get bogged down in the news. And but now's a time of hope with springtime, things blooming, springtime in the air, Easter week. And today I think we have a couple of other ways to inspire hope. There's a quote I like. It's from Edward Hale. He lived from 1822 to 1909. He was an American author and a Unitarian clergyman. And you know, when we feel overwhelmed, I think he made a good point. He said, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do." And I think it's just a great lesson. Again, it's easy to get overwhelmed. And sometimes when it happens, paralysis sets in and we do nothing. But even though we're only one, you're only one, I'm only one, our presenter Jason is only one, when we work together, we are exponentially more and can make a difference. And we're called to make a difference. And that's why I'm glad we have Jason here with us today. He's going to share some information that I think is interesting and informative and can help us make informed decisions. Jason is a managing partner with Eventide Mutual Funds, a company that I use, and many of you would see their name on your statements as a holding. And I like the way that they do business. And Jason, I just want to say thanks a lot for being here, and the floor is yours.
Well, thanks so much, Tim, and I enjoyed your introduction. And I am only one, and I'm glad to be spending the only opportunity I have with this time with you. So thanks for joining for what I hope will be worth your one opportunity with the next 30 minutes or so. I want to share with you about values-based investing, what it is and why it's so important. So before diving in, I'll just tell you who I am. So I'm Jason, good to meet you. I am a managing partner of Eventide. As Tim said, we're a mutual fund company that's based in Boston, Massachusetts. And our specialty is faith and values-based investing, which you'll learn about today. And I spend my time doing a lot of public speaking on the topic. So we'll leave it at that. Okay, so to get us started, I want to ask you a question. What comes to mind when you think about investing? I like to ask this question to my friends and family. What comes to mind when you think about investing? And what I'm really looking for here are what sort of mental images do you see? You know how the brain likes to give us pictures, almost like a movie in our mind. What do you see? Whenever I ask this question, I tend to hear things like this. Maybe this fits with your own mental pictures. Account statements or reports with esoteric figures, ticker symbols streaming by as in Times Square, talking heads on CNBC, or pick your favorite news program, reporting on the latest breaking news in the market. The market's up, the market's down. Charts with zigzagging lines, or we might think of Wall Street and its traders shouting orders over the den of the stock exchanges, perhaps more images like these. I call all of these images the financial machinery that surrounds investing today. And it's certainly a part of the deal. It's inescapable. But many of us never really get to thinking about what happens behind these images. I'm going to share with you a quote here. This is a professor from DePaul University who says that retirement accounts tend to just go into things like mutual funds, where as an investor, not only do I not have any idea how the companies that I have stock in are being operated, I don't even know what companies I have stock in. How true is that? How many companies could you name that you are investing in say, your 401k plan or your IRA? Many of us are very detached from the things that we're investing in. And so it's very easy for us to just wonder, what am I investing in and how well aligned or not aligned are these companies with my vision for the world, the things that I consider important, my values, my beliefs, my faith, my ethical commitments, things like this. To state the obvious, all of us have values. And if we reflect on this, our values really determine almost every decision we make in life. Our values probably led us to the kind of career we're in. Our values probably had something to say about who we pursued in marriage, how we are raising our children, the causes that we support, the things that we give our time and money to, the way we vote, and we could go on and on. And so the obvious here is that values should have something to say about our investing. So what do you value? I want to connect what you value to the way that you invest. Now, this can be a difficult topic to think about, at least initially, because of all that financial machinery. And so what I want to do is I want to just share with you the story of a family, tell you a little bit about them and their values, and show how their values intersected with the way they invest. And so we can learn just by stepping into someone else's shoes. So I want to introduce you to the Schwartz family, who you see on the screen. I have a person, this is a real family, by the way. I have a personal relationship with Blake Schwartz here. He is a Presbyterian minister who lives in Dallas, Texas. He's married to Julia, and together they have 3 children. This is Alice Arthur, age 4, Margaret, age 6, and Nathaniel, age 1. Blake's story of investing begins at a very young age. So here he is as a very young man with his grandmother. He didn't get to know his grandmother very well because she passed when he was still young. But before she passed, she established a trust fund investment account for him that he was to receive when he turned 18 years old. So lucky kid, he was a trust fund baby. Well, let's fast forward in his life to the day he turns 18 and he receives this trust fund. Happy day. Or it should have been a completely happy day. But as he began to examine this trust fund that he had now taken hold of, he was looking at the financial statements and he was greatly dismayed to discover that actually 80% of the holdings of this trust fund were invested in a company called the Altria Group. This is a picture of their stock certificate. I don't know if you have ever heard of this company before, but this is a big tobacco company. And this was especially painful for Blake because the reason that he didn't get to know his grandmother very well is that she passed away from lung cancer as a result of long-term tobacco smoking. And to make the pain even more acute, this was actually the very company that she was a customer of that ultimately ended up taking her life. Now, I hate telling you this story. I did not take any pleasure in this, but it does highlight something very important, that behind all of the financial machinery, investing is company ownership. And it works like this. This is Investing 101. Investing involves a supply of capital to support business. In exchange, what do you get? You get ownership in that business, or what we might describe as the rights to receive any of the potential profits and growth that might come in the future. From this picture, we can see that we are not profiting from a chart. We're profiting from the real activities of business, which are having a real impact in the lives of others. This is why investing is an ethical decision. It is a values decision. It is always an ethical and values decision. There is no such thing as non-values-based investing. It is all values-based investing. It is really only a question: are we conscious of this, and are we being attentive to it, and are we being intentional in the way that we invest such that it reflects our values? I want to talk about the three basic dimensions of values-based investing. And the first I've already introduced to you. It's called avoid. It involves thinking about owning companies and just asking these questions. What kinds of companies do I not want to own? What are my non-negotiables? What are the things that I simply cannot, in good conscience, take part in? There are a host of potential problem areas that we can come into through the world of investing. We must remember that the world of investing is as wide as the world of business. And so there are things that happen in the business world that you may not personally feel comfortable in taking part in profiting from, and in owning and supporting. I've put up on the screen just some real examples to show you. I'm not saying these need to be your values. These are here just as things for you to consider. So through traditional investing, you will undoubtedly have exposure to one or more of these elements. Things like companies that are involved in abortion in some way, maybe producing abortifacients or providing abortion services, alcohol, animal cruelty, environmentally irresponsible actions, gambling, pornography, predatory lending, as we saw, tobacco, vanity and luxury products, violent video gaming, weaponry. The list can be longer here. These are just some examples of the common problem areas that we can come into through just a traditional, conventional approach to investing. Well, the genius of values-based investing is that it allows you to express these convictions. You can actually choose to avoid owning companies that do not align with your values. You can express this to Tim, and Tim can help you to invest according to your convictions there. Very important dimension of values-based investing. I want to go back to the Schwartz family. So Blake and Julia had their first child, Britton, a boy, who is shown here. And Britton was born with a tragic inherited disease called spinal muscular atrophy type 1, or SMA, if you've ever heard of it. It's commonly called floppy baby syndrome because babies that are born with SMA are limp and floppy at birth, such as shown in this diagrammatic picture here, and why Britton is shown lying down in his baby photo. It is a genetic disease. It is caused by the body just being broken at birth, where they lack the ability to produce a protein that all of us have called survival motor neuron. And this protein lives in our muscles, and it's what enables our muscles to gain strength. So you can imagine what happens if you do not have this protein in your body. The strength you have at birth is the strength you get, and it actually degrades from there because proteins need to be replenished. Eventually what happens is you lose the muscle functions of breathing and pumping blood, and it typically strikes at a very young age. The chance of survival at Britton's birth was just a 20% chance to make it to age 2, and a virtually 0% chance to making it to adulthood. Obviously, mom and dad, first time mom and dad, were heartbroken over this diagnosis, and they're a family of means, and they sought the entire world over for any treatment that could potentially save Britton's life. Unfortunately, healthcare advances were just not there, and Britton passed away when he was just 8 months old. 4 years later, they had their third child, Alice Arthur. And Alice Arthur, unimaginably, was also diagnosed with this same rare genetic disease. Another potential heartbreaker here, but this story goes differently. In the 4 short years that had gone by, there was now a treatment available for SMA. In fact, 2 to choose from. And here she is with mom on an airplane headed to the Ohio State University, where she would be the 13th baby to be enrolled in a new gene therapy to treat SMA. Gene therapy is a new human innovation in the area of biotechnology that to me sounds a lot like science fiction. It is actually not far off from this stock photograph you're looking at on the screen. It involves understanding where precisely the body is broken at the genetic level, and then delivering a healthy copy of the broken gene to the cells that need it, thus effectively fixing the problem at a root cause level. Sounds like science fiction. In the case of the gene therapy to treat SMA, it delivers the gene that codes for the missing protein. So you give this treatment, it works its way into the muscles are able to start producing this protein, and importantly, this supports normal human development. Alice Arthur received this treatment, and by just the miracle of innovation, it worked. I already showed you a picture of her. She's the bright young lady in the blue dress. She's happy, healthy, and dad reports currently learning to read and loving it. Wonderful story, right? I spoke to Blake about the importance of investing. Here's what he said to me. I want you to think about this. As my eyes have been opened to God's redemptive purposes in the world and what he's doing, I've seen how investing can change people's lives. Very beautiful quote. There is something odd about this quote, however. Why does Blake say, I've seen how investing can change people's lives? I mean, what's the connection to investing here? Wasn't it a biotech company that produced the therapy that his daughter received that ultimately enabled her to survive? Well, yes. So what's the investing connection? Well, it goes back to this diagram that I showed you earlier. Investing is a two-way street. Now, we tend to focus only on one direction of investing, and that is the flow of profits and growth that might come to us, right? But investing involves also a supply of capital that supports business. And this means that every investing choice is also a choice of how to shape the world, of how to support business, of how to support different kinds of business work and innovation. Do you know why there was a treatment available for Alice Arthur when there were none for Britain? There's two reasons. The first is science had simply not gotten there. The second, however, is that there were no investors to fund this kind of treatment. Both are necessary, right? And so what an exciting thing to not only just have an account that is potentially putting off returns that help us save for retirement, but to see yourself as a strategic allocator of capital to support businesses that are doing good things in the world. And this is the real heart of values-based investing, in my opinion. It's called embrace. It involves moving past the negatives, to think positively, to think creatively, to say, what kinds of companies would I feel proud to own? What kinds of businesses are truly seeking to serve society and human flourishing, and how can I support them? At my company, this is our tagline: investing that makes the world rejoice. Now, we have a ton of avoidance screens in place, but our heart is to invest such that the world is enabled to experience flourishing and rejoicing in some measure. It starts by just thinking big picture about where can I invest to grow my money, while at the same time doing so by supporting some important theme of human flourishing. And below the line, I've listed out a number of these spaces. There's actually lots and lots of really good things going on in the world of business that I think we can be really excited to partner with. Highlighting circled here, just one of those: pediatric and orphan diseases. This is the realm of investing where things like treatments for SMA are made possible. After identifying these big picture themes that we're excited to support, then what this embrace dimension involves is also getting down to the local level and evaluating companies and asking, hey, how are they treating customers, employees, suppliers, communities? How are they stewarding creation? What is their contribution on the whole to society? Here's some questions about these. Is this company meeting an important human need? Our customers delighted? Do employees love their jobs? Are suppliers valued as strategic partners? Are communities better off for the company's presence? Is the environment being cared for and protected? This is, if you can answer yes to these questions, this is the heart of what it would mean to invest in a company you really feel proud to own. And so embrace is the process of really seeking to own companies that really align with and express your values in the world. And there are some tools, again, here to help you shift your investments more in the direction of your vision for the world. Very exciting. Finally, there's something called engage. After you invest in a company, in many ways, you're just getting started because now you're the owner of a company. And there's some power that comes with that, as well as responsibility. So how do you use that power as an owner of a company to partner with the company to continue on a path of excellence and to create still more value in the world? Now, many of you are using investment products, and so your investment managers really are the ones that have the opportunity to do this here. I'll share how we do it at my company. It's really just being an active owner of the companies you own with a vision for values. Okay, so building close relationships with the management teams of the companies that we invest in for our shareholders so that we're in conversation with them. This is not always possible, but we try. Actively voting our shareholders' values on the proxy voting requirements that just come with the territory. So instead of just always voting in line with management, really considering what we're voting on and taking our values into consideration there. And then always looking for ways that the business could improve, that we could potentially work with the company to help do. I'm going to give you an example of this later, just to make this dimension a bit more concrete for you. But for now, you can just think about it as being an active owner of companies, engaging them for even more positive effects in the world. Okay, avoid, embrace, engage. 3 dimensions. Now, here at the end, what I want to do is I want to just address what is often the elephant in the room. It may not be the elephant in this room, Zoom room, but it is an elephant nonetheless for many people. If I invest according to my values, what happens to my performance? Many of us are investing this money not as charity, not as extra money, but as something that is important for our financial livelihood. Here's the way that one person put it to me after a Zoom meeting a couple of years back. They said, "Hey, I appreciate the values-based investing point, but can we both agree that profitability is a core requirement? We can't just rely on good feelings to drive our investment decisions, right?" Good question, an honest question, and it deserves a good and honest response. The best way to respond to this performance question is by looking at the effects of each of these dimensions separately. If you lump them all together, it can be somewhat of a confusing picture. And so I want to just break them out, and then I think you'll be able to see more clearly how it all fits together. So let's take this avoidance dimension. Let's say that because of your values, you wanted to avoid investing in the tobacco industry like Blake. Okay. Now, isn't the tobacco industry a very profitable industry? And so if you choose to avoid it, whereas your neighbor who has a different set of convictions is fine owning it, doesn't that mean that you will necessarily do worse than your neighbor? Won't it affect your performance? Well, yes and no. I want to share with you a quote here. This is by far the nerdiest quote in the presentation. This comes from industry. And so I'm going to do a little language translation here. You can follow along with this to this quote with me. I'm going to just swap out a few words just to make it more intelligible to you. This is a very well-respected figure in the industry, John Hale at Morningstar. Morningstar is one of the leading investment research firms. Here's what he says. The idea that values-based investing is a recipe for underperformance or bad performance is a myth. That's a relief. Like most myths, however, there is a kernel of truth to it. That avoiding things for values reasons can limit portfolio performance. What's he saying? If you choose to avoid the tobacco industry, yes, this will affect your performance. we found evidence in the research that avoiding things can have a negative effect on your performance. Now, let me just stop here. It's important to ask the question, does investing according to your values affect performance? That's an important question to answer, which is what I'm attempting to do here. But there's another question we need to ask ourselves, which I think is a healthy one. How important are your values? How much, I guess I would say, are you willing to sacrifice for your values? This is just a good test of character. There are some things that are so important that it really wouldn't matter to me if I could make a profit by being engaged or involved in that area. And I think all of us probably have these things as well. So just want to state that. But the quote doesn't end here. So he goes on to say, but the research also finds intriguing evidence of a positive values-based inclusion effect. He's talking about that embrace dimension, which is bolstered by company-focused research suggesting that firm-level sustainability performance is associated with better financial outcomes. To summarize, avoiding profitable industries for values reasons can affect performance, but he's saying when that's combined with a more holistic vision for investing that includes this embrace dimension, you can potentially offset those effects or even do better. So we have to talk about the embrace piece. And here's where I think the wisdom of values-based investing comes in. I like to say this: what's right is also smart. Doing the right thing in life often turns out to be a very smart approach indeed. And I think we can see that wisdom here in this embrace dimension. And I want to illustrate it for you by going back to this picture of a business that I showed you earlier. This is a typical business. This business has customers, employees, suppliers, a community that it operates in. It affects the environment and it impacts society. And what I want to do is show you why the business's relationship with these groups, why that affects the performance result for shareholders. Okay, so think about the negative here first. We're going to paint a bleak picture, but it'll illustrate the effect. Let's say this business cuts back on services or product quality to save costs and to boost margins. How do we as customers tend to respond to that kind of action? We don't like it generally. And if it's bad enough, we can walk away from the business and tell our friends and family to steer clear. That's obviously not going to be good for profitability. Let's say the business treats their employees kind of just as cogs in the machine, costs to be kept at a minimum. Well, the employees don't love these jobs. And so they tend to kind of be checked out of their work and invest the bare minimum. And they probably are going to be looking for gainful employment somewhere else. That's not going to be good for business. When a business treats suppliers harshly with a very short-term financial bargaining mentality rather than long-term, the suppliers, they're going to meet expectations probably, but that's about it. They're not going to really go out of their way to help the business. When a business disregards the communities they operate in, those communities can see that business as a foreigner, a foreign corporation in their community. And if given alternatives, they will patronize another business. When a business exploits the environment, the business is exhausting productive capacities upon which they depend. Now, that's in the long run. But in the short run, they can also face litigation, fines, environmental catastrophes, all of which can destroy shareholder value. And when a business harms society, the world is made worse. But the business can also face criticism, ire, condemnation. They can be faced with boycotts, divestment, regulation. All of this is going to affect the bottom line. None of this stuff on the screen is found in the company's balance sheet. This is really the character of a business. This is really the values and behavior and ethical behavior of a business. And it works in the positive direction as well. When a business channels its creativity into improving value for customers, customers are delighted, so they continue to buy. They tell friends and family about the business, bringing new customers, drives the bottom line. When employees have good jobs where they're treated as human beings with dignified, creative labor and a just compensation, they invest their passion and creativity into the mission of the business, driving the bottom line. Deloitte reports that just 20% of American workers say that they're passionate about their job. Well, If we could create more jobs where people could be passionate about what the company's doing, it could be very powerful. When a business values their suppliers as long-term strategic partners, the suppliers view the business the same way. And so they'll look for ways to help the business succeed. For example, giving preferential allocations to limited premium supply options. When a business invests in local communities, the communities can see that business as a favorite local business, and they are delighted and proud to support it. When a business cares for and preserves the environment flourishes, and it's there to sustain the business again and again and again in an ongoing manner. And we've seen businesses like, for example, Patagonia or Ben & Jerry's that have simply built an impressive, successful company just by being a good steward of creation. So there's a very powerful market opportunity there. And when a business adds value to society, the world is made better. The business can also win praise and admiration, awards and recognition, and oftentimes market share as well. You can see here again, values matter to investing. It's not just about the cold hard numbers on the balance sheet. It's about the nature of value creation around the complete circle of a business. If you're the kind of person that loves this sort of thing, which there's not too many in the world, but here's a couple of books. You can ask me later if you want more details on these, but customers, this is proving the case that delighting customers drives the bottom line. Very well respected book. Here's one from an MIT researcher arguing that good jobs are what ultimately drive the bottom line. I'll conclude the embrace dimension here just by saying this quote from Ed Freeman, who says that business ethics shouldn't be an oxymoron. It should be two words that are redundant to each other. Thinking about stakeholders, those groups, is thinking about business. It's smart. And thinking about stakeholders is thinking about ethics. It's right. It comes to the same thing. This is why I like to say what's right is also smart. All right, lastly, and then we'll conclude, engage. What's the performance effect of these engagements? Well, they're all unique. So there's not like a well-quantified data source that we can examine here. But I'll just give you one example of what one of these engagements looks like. It's a real example, and you can kind of see the effect. So we invested a few years ago in an online retail company that specializes in furniture and home decor. That's all I'm allowed to say. I can't give you the actual name of the company for compliance reasons, but you may have heard of them. They're an up and coming e-commerce company. Very impressive in their business. Well, we've been investing for a while, and we began to examine their customer financing arm. You can see some credit cards in the background of the photo there. You know how if you go to, let's say, Best Buy or Kohl's, you can actually get a credit card at the store, and it's backed by Visa or American Express or whatever. And you can use that credit card anywhere or in store, and you can earn rewards for use in the store there. So they had one of these credit cards. As we began looking at it, one thing that jumped out to us is that it had a very high interest rate. And as we began comparing that interest rate around, it was very high. So high, in fact, that we began to do a little soul searching to just ask the question, well, how high is too high? Credit, in our view, can be a useful tool for purchasing needful items, but if you have any experience with high interest debt, you also know that it can be a trap, and it can be very difficult to get out of this trap if you get behind in those compounding monthly high interest payments. Ultimately, we decided this was just an unacceptable interest rate for a company to have. Now, what do? Do we sell it? Well, maybe, but we were an investor, which means that we had a voice in the company. And so we decided, hey, let's just ask the company about this. Let's not, be activists or shame them for their bad, immoral behavior. Let's just talk to them and share our concerns and see what they're thinking. Because of our approach toward them, they listened. And over a series of conversations, they became actually persuaded of our view to the extent that they decided to terminate that credit card vendor and to get a different one whose interest rates were well within the bounds of the fair and the ethical. So we looked at that and said, that's pretty amazing that we actually were able to change something in the world like that. The company looked at it, however, and they said, we've actually improved our business. We have improved the value proposition to our customers who want to make purchases using customer financing. So I think you can see the way in which these engagements can be very useful in de-risking your own investing or in improving the businesses you already own. So I think it can have a positive effect. In conclusion, 3 reasons why I think values-based investing is so important. Number 1, the pursuit of integrity in life. Nothing could be more important, right? In investing, this means avoiding companies that cause harm while seeking out and embracing companies that create blessing. Secondly, creating impact. You can actually have a bigger purpose for your investing than just a financial goal. You can actually see the connection between your dollars and shaping the common good. And finally, still seeking out performance. In fact, I believe values-based investing is a way for us to more completely evaluate business and thus to seek that task of outperformance. This happens when we partner with companies that prosper by serving well the needs of others. I think values make a difference. And I'll leave you with this quote. This is from the New York Times. Here's what they said. Try thinking about it this way. Living your values in every way in life as best you can, it often delivers a positive emotional return. Feels good. So any realignment of your portfolio on the basis of values can offer more value than you think. If all that mattered was financial value, well, this would be a very different conversation. But I have a hunch that you're a human being like me, and that life is importantly about financial value, but it's about a more holistic kind of value. And if that sounds like you, then I say, hey, give values-based investing a look. And with that, I'm going to welcome Tim back on the call to take us through the end of our time.
All right, thanks, Jason. That was excellent. I have a question. I hope it's not too big of a question. So you've heard of consumers boycotting a company.
Yep.
For whatever reason. The difference between a consumer and an owner, I guess, just briefly, if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. It's really important. So I'll give you just my favorite example here would be, think about your neighborhood gas station convenience store. Okay, so let's take the customer first. So let's say you go there and you fill up the tank with gas, you go in and you buy a bottle of water, you pay, and you're on your way. That has been the nature of your relationship with that business. And so I think you've done nothing wrong there. Now take the perspective of the owner of the gas station. The owner is perfectly happy to sell you gasoline and that bottle of water. They're also perfectly happy to sell anything else that gas station convenience store offers, including lottery tickets, tobacco, pornography, if they still do that, whatever. So the owner of a company profits from everything, whereas the customer is really doing business with whatever products they're purchasing there. Investing is like being an owner of the company. It's like owning that gas station. You profit from the totality of whatever it is that business is doing. Now, this is not to say that being a customer doesn't matter. So a good example here would be my colleague. He talks about shopping at CVS versus Walgreens. So CVS has chosen to not sell tobacco products because they felt it was inconsistent with having a pharmacy there in the same store location. And so he said, hey, these stores are often right across the street from one another. And so even though I might be going in to buy deodorant, I would rather patronize CVS than Walgreens just because of this conviction that the business holds there. So I do believe that being a consumer, a customer, carries with it an ethical responsibility, but being an owner of a company carries an even higher level of ethical responsibility.
Okay. Thank you. And then some of this could be subjective. it seems like there's some objectivity, but then there might be a piece that's subjective.
Yep.
How do we deal with that?
Well, I'll tell you how we deal with this. So some things are a little bit more cut and dry. So let's say you didn't want to have exposure to companies that were involved in abortion in some way. You can actually trace that revenue and eliminate that. And it's a pretty clear cut exercise. What's more difficult, however, is trying to decide what businesses through their products and services and practices are actually making a contribution to the beauty and goodness of creation, right? That's a harder exercise. I think this involves human subjectivity. It involves the moral character of the person making the decision, and really just discerning what would be fitting for the world that we live in, what would be good. And I think we human beings are given that level of autonomy and that level of dignity to be able to make those choices. It's difficult. There are many meetings that I have at my company around the table with my colleagues where we're looking at a particular business and saying, is this the best use of our shareholder capital? And I will fully admit that it's not a straightforward data exercise. It is not always easy, but it's exciting. We get to actually decide with this capital that we're putting out into the world and investing in business, are we enlarging the beauty and goodness of creation? Or would we be in some way better to invest that capital elsewhere? So it is a subjective exercise, but one that is uniquely given to us as human beings, and as I think just a great dignifying honor that we have.
Great. Thanks so much, Jason, for the presentation. It was really good, interesting, helpful. And for everyone else, if you have some questions, please feel free to email or call. My info's on the screen. This is being recorded, and I will send out a link in about a week or so to the link of the website where you could share that with friends or watch it again if you had something that caught your fancy, I guess. So thanks so much for being here today, and enjoy the day, enjoy this springtime, everything in bloom, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you so much.